Let's keep it on going with part 3. We're going to be talking about section 69 as we currently have it today. First copy that we have is found in Revelation Book 1. We're back to the handwriting of John Whitmer again. It is given the number 7 for now no reason at all, but there it is. October is actually crossed out and November is put in its place. So there's some corrections here. This is, again, hopefully now understanding from section 67. Yeah, this was all commanded, like, hey, conference says it, go fix these words, and that's what they were doing. So wrote it out in the book of in the Revelation books, and then corrected the language before they printed it. Corrections in this case are in the hand of John Whitmer with verse numbering by W.W. Phelps. The addition of their stewardship, when speaking of the land of Zion, is done here. And a footnote to this says, when William W. Phelps quoted from this revelation in an August 1832 issue of the Evening and Morning Star, he included the phrase of their stewardships here and asked the elders at a distance to send him their accounts of their missions so he could publish them. So this idea that, like, hey, just, let's talk about what you're doing in the land of Zion. But in this case, it's like, let's talk about your stewardships generally. And the idea was that these periodicals that were sent out were asking for mission reports, more or less. You need to account for the stewardship that you have. So an interesting addition there. It is section 28 in the Doctrine and Covenants, and it is in the manuscript history, which we will again get to in a moment. Small differences, very small, between 1981 and 2013 section heading. For example, 1981 says monies that are going to Zion, and 2013 just says money. But again, in the spirit of trying to be as cool as the editors from the Joseph Smith papers, I did note that one letter difference between the two. Anyway, 1981 version, the section heading there closes with this. As the course of travel would lead him through a sparsely settled country to the frontier, a traveling companion was desirable. Now, he is Oliver Cowdery. So the 2013 edition changes that closing statement to this. This revelation instructs John Whitmer to accompany Oliver Cowdery and also directs Whitmer to travel and collect historical material in his calling as church historian and recorder. So kind of going back to your stewardships, like not only are you traveling, but you're also going to be doing work along the way. Circumstantial introduction to section 69 we get from Revelation Book 1, 74th, received on the 11th of October, 1831. That's it. We get the same thing for Doctrine and Covenants, just revelation given on this date. The manuscript history gives us the Book of Commandments in Revelations was to be dedicated by prayer to the service of Almighty God by me. And after I had done this, I inquired of the Lord concerning these things and received the following. Okay, so we're talking about printing and dedicating the work to God. And it's interesting, they're using a very similar pattern that they did with the Book of Mormon, where they would send manuscripts out. They would kind of deliver them to the printer and then come back again, all that kind of stuff. All right. Historical introduction from Volume 1 of the document series says, on 11 November 1831, Joseph Smith dictated this revelation, assigning John Whitmer to accompany Oliver Cowdery on an upcoming trip to Missouri. Sometime in late October or early November, Oliver Cowdery received the assignment to carry Joseph Smith's revelations to Missouri so they could be published at the printing office William W. Phelps was establishing there. John Whitmer later wrote that he was appointed by revelation to accompany Cowdery. This 11th November directive for Whitmer, who, according to a March 1831 revelation, was responsible for keeping the church record and history continually, to go to Missouri, indicates that the records necessary to maintain a history of the church were to be kept there. So, footnote to this introduction that we get says, a later Joseph Smith history seems to indicate that Cowdery and Whitmer received the assignment to start for Independence, Missouri, prior to the 1st of November 1831 conference. Although that may have been true for Cowdery, a July 1831 revelation directed him to assist Phelps with printing in Missouri, and a 1st November 1831 revelation instructed him to carry these things to the land of Zion. Whitmer apparently did not know about his assignment until this revelation. So wouldn't that be fun? Of like, oh, what? I'm going to, Missouri now? Okay. Anyway, so he found that out in the moment. Further into the historical introduction, we get, while this revelation did not enumerate exactly which records should be preserved, It indicated that among them were the accounts of saints who were abroad in the earth, supplemented by records Whitmer himself was to obtain by traveling to different congregations. The revelation also reiterated the need for Whitmer to write in his history, quote, all the important things which you shall observe and know concerning my church, unquote. And wouldn't you know it, there's not a thing in the footnotes that we haven't already spoken to. So again, I was talking about this earlier. We're hearkening back to previous revelations and all that. It's all been done. So basically, you have your marching orders. We're going to go print this. Oliver, you head out. John, go with him, right? And let's get this going, and not just delivering stuff, but also let's collect in these stories and these things that are happening. And I believe this is where you start really get into manuscript histories, John Whitmer's history, all that kind of stuff comes from that. So it's kind of fun to see how these kind of the flower blooming of like how these things actually came to pass. So that is it. Section 107 is also chronologically given at this time. One of the reasons why I'm not doing it now is very similar to Section 133 in that Section 107, as we have it today, is definitely multiple sections put together. And so it is explaining the priesthood and what it is and where it comes from and the history of it and all that. And we're going to get to that in its own thing because it's rather lengthy. And also just because there's more that's added to it at a later time. So that being said, that's all there is to say for this episode of Filling in the History. A bit more debate about printing Revelations than you might think, because the church is big on publishing anything, like general conferences, all of it now. But back in the day, they kept their minutes private, they kept their Revelations private, and this is a big change for them to actually publish it out. And as I've already stated, that was the Book of Commandments, and frankly, that did not end well. They didn't even get to print the books. The mob of Independence, Missouri did not like what they were doing. They destroyed their printing office. They destroyed their press. They stole their press, actually. It was used to print a newspaper later on, and they tried to burn the whole thing down. And if it wasn't for the very brave actions of a couple of young women, we wouldn't have any of it. So, yeah, big one for that. So,